If you think we're on the run, we are the boys who will stop your little game. We are the boys who will make you think again. 'Cause who do you think you are kidding, Mr. Hitler, if you think old England's done? Mr. Brown goes off to town on the A21, but he comes home each evening and he's ready with his gun. So who do you think you are kidding, Mr. Hitler, if you think old England's done?
The big stations at both ends of the North Western Railway, Tidmouth and Barrow, each have a turntable. The first Fat controller, Sir Topham Hatt, had built them so that Edward, Henry, Gordon and James can be turned round, as it is dangerous for tender engines to go fast backwards, pushing their tenders ahead of them. But tank engines like Thomas, that carry their coal and water with them, don't need turntables. They can go just as well backwards as forwards. But if you had heard Gordon talking a short while ago, you would have thought that Sir Nigel Gresley had given him a tender just to show how important he was. "You don't understand, little Thomas," said Gordon. "What don't I understand?" asked Thomas. "We tender engines have a position to keep up," continued Gordon. "You haven't a tender, and that makes a difference." "I have a position to keep up too, you know," snapped Thomas. "I've got to be on time with all my branch line trains. What difference does that make?" "It doesn't matter what you say or where you go," snorted Gordon. "But we tender engines are important." "Nonsense, Gordon," said Thomas. "I'm just as important as you tender engines. Without me, who would run this branch line?" "Branch lines, match lines," snorted Gordon, and continued his speech. "And for the Fat controller to make us shut trucks, fetch coaches, and go on some of those dirty sidings, well, it's not the proper thing." "Oh, rubbish," snorted Thomas. "Edward never complains, and he's a tender engine too." "Edward is old, clapped out, and not as important as me," finished Gordon, and he puffed away in a dignified manner. Thomas ignored Gordon and went off with Annie and Clarabel. Later, Gordon's express, the Awdry, had arrived at Barrow Station. Much to his displeasure, Gordon had to wait till all the passengers had gotten out. Then, groaning and grumbling hideously, he shunted the coaches to another platform, ready for Henry's return working of the express, the Wild Nor'Wester. "Disgraceful!" Gordon hissed. Henry soon arrived to collect the coaches, but Gordon was still in a bad mood and took his frustrations out on Henry. "Next time, Henry," he said, "fetch your coaches yourself." "Now you see how I feel about having to fetch your coaches," huffed Henry, and backed down onto the express. Soon he puffed away in a huff, while Gordon went to be turned round for his next train. "Disgraceful! Disgraceful!" Gordon hissed, as he ran backwards to the turntable. Both of the turntables at the big stations were troublesome. Each was in a windy place close to the sea, but the one at Barrow was worse. It was only 70 feet long, just big enough for Gordon, and if he didn't stop on it just right, he put it out of balance and made it difficult to turn. Today, Gordon was in a bad temper, and the wind was blowing fiercely. His driver tried to make him stop in the right place. Backwards and forwards they went, but Gordon wasn't trying. At last, Gordon's driver gave it up, and the fireman tried to turn the handle, but Gordon's full 90-ton weight and the strong wind prevented him. The driver, a workman, and the fireman all tried together. "It's no good," he said at last. "Your tender upsets the balance. If you were a nice tank engine, you'd be all right, and now you'll have to pull your next train backwards." Gordon arrived at the junction. Some little boy shouted, come quick, here's a new tank engine." "Oh, what a swizz," said another. "It's only Gordon, back to front." Thomas had overheard the boys nearby, and laughed at the sight of Gordon. "Hello, Gordon," he called. "Plain tank engines? Sensible engine, take my advice, scrap your tender and have a nice bunker instead." Gordon snorted and didn't answer, and even James laughed when he saw him. "Take care," hissed Gordon. "You might stick too." "No fear," chuckled James. I'm not so fat as you! James soon arrived at the terminus and left his coaches. He then ran to the turntable to turn round, ready to take an eastbound goods train. I mustn't stick, thought James. He rolled onto the turntable and stopped just right, so that his boiler and tender balanced it. It could now swing easily. Gordon arrived in time to see everything. James's fireman began cranking the handle, and James began to turn, much too easily. The wind blew him round like a top. He couldn't stop. At last the wind died down, and James stopped spinning. Oh, groaned James. I feel quite sick. Well, laughed Gordon. Are you playing roundabouts? Poor James, feeling quite giddy, rolled off to the shed without a word. He felt dreadful and was unable to take his goods train, so the Fat Controller decided that Gordon would have to take it. And Gordon was furious when he found out. Disgraceful, he grumbled. Me pull a goods train! Ah! He banged the trucks hard. Even when puffing along, he still grumbled and complained. He even refused to climb the hill that not so long ago had been mockingly named in his honour, so Edward had to be called out to help him. Disgraceful, groaned Gordon, as Edward and his crew slowly but surely forced him up the hill. That night, the three engines had an indignation meeting. It's shameful to treat tender engines like this, fumed Gordon. Henry gets hooshed by an elephant, hissed James. Gordon has to go backwards, and people think it's a tank engine, added Henry. James spins round like a top, and everyone laughs at us, finished Gordon. And to add to that, the Fat Controller makes us shunted dirty sidings. Ah! Said all three engines together. Listen, said Gordon. He whispered something to James and Henry. We'll do it tomorrow. The Fat Controller will look silly. The three engines had decided to go on